Remaining under Lord Mayor's special business, I would like to welcome Carly Calland to the Chamber. Farah and Carly represent Jacob's Journey, Life Over Death, a campaign which looks to raise awareness about e-scooters use by anyone under the age of 18, and also campaigns for changes to the law around the sale and use of private e-scooters in order to save lives. I'd like to invite Farah and Carly to address the Chamber.
This is really Carly's story, but I'm sure you can imagine this is quite an overwhelming chamber to speak in. So as her friend, I said that I would speak on her behalf. On the 19th of March, Carly's son Jacob Calland made a split-second decision to go for a ride on another boy's e-scooter. You may have heard about the story. It was reported in the Manchester Evening News. Carly has spoken with various media outlets, including BBC Breakfast and Granada Reports. Jacob jumped in the back of an e-scooter with another 14-year-old boy. They went for a ride locally in the Bagley area, and unfortunately it was a fatal decision because the e-scooter collided with a car. Jacob was standing on the back as a passenger, and he took the brunt of the impact. The impact of the incident was so severe that Jacob's shoes blew off. His trainers had blown off his feet, and he went flying onto the other side of the road, where he landed in front of the oncoming traffic on that side. Jacob suffered a catastrophic head injury. At this point, Carly, his mum, wasn't aware of what had happened. Emergency services were called. The air ambulance, Northwest Air Ambulance, was called, and they gave Jacob life-saving treatment on the road. They were able to stabilise him, and he was rushed to the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital, where he was in a coma. And after 8 days of Carly being by his side, Jacob very sadly passed away on the 27th of March. The death has devastated not just Carly and her friends, but the wider family as well, and the whole community in Wythenshawe. This only happened, I think it's 16 weeks yesterday. And within those 16 weeks, Carly has set up a fantastic campaign to try and bring awareness to parents and young people about the dangers of e-scooters, and to also press the government for a change to the law. Electric scooters, the law says they're currently illegal to use in public, which I'm sure many members sat here will find it very hard to believe, given how many of them we see flying in and out of the traffic on our roads. There is currently no regulation from the government in relation to these e-scooters, and what you'll find is anybody can get their hands on them, including children. I myself have, as part of this campaign, scrolled through Halford's website, Debenhams, Amazon. It's very, very small writing on the websites to say these scooters should not be used in public places, a very small disclaimer. But unfortunately, the message isn't out there. So many parents have said to Carly and I that they never knew that e-scooters were illegal to use in public. They've been buying them for their children, for Christmas, for their birthdays. They're out there playing on them. Carly had always told Jacob that he wasn't allowed to have a scooter. She told him that they were dangerous and that they were illegal to use in public, and that's the real tragedy of this story. This isn't a case where Carly herself had bought the scooter and Jacob had gone out and messed around on it and had an accident. She had warned him repeatedly about the scooter, and Carly even said to me, she said, if Jacob ever came home with a scooter, Farah, I would take the wheels off and say, here you go, here's your scooter, because you're not riding one of these things. And that's the really sad thing about this. To share Jacob's story in terms of what happened to him, we made together an 18-minute video which went viral. It's currently on, I think, nearly 80,000 views on YouTube, which documents from the Ring doorbell footage of Jacob leaving his house on that day to what happened during the accident, and then him being in a coma for those 8 days. Carly sent him several messages in the hope that he was going to wake up out of the coma and he'll be able to see in chronological order what happened to him and what was happening in terms of his treatment. Sadly, Jacob wasn't able to wake up and read those messages, and those messages are set out within the video. It's a very harrowing watch. It follows all the way through to Jacob's funeral and what Carly and her family went through. So that really has hit home. We know a number of schools in Manchester have shown that video to children, which has been a fantastic thing, and that's certainly something Carly is really pushing for. So that's the awareness side of the campaign, but the change to the law side of the campaign, Carly has set up a parliamentary e-petition, which I think in 4 weeks now, I think it's been live, and we've just last night hit 8,000 signatures. And essentially what we're asking for is full regulation of e-scooters, because at the moment the law is not good enough at all for these what we would say death traps. What we're asking for is that there should be a complete ban on the sale of these e-scooters for anybody under the age of 18, that anybody who wants to buy an e-scooter or ride an e-scooter would have to have a licence, and that licence would be presented at the point of sale, which should limit the people who would buy them for antisocial reasons, etc. What we're also asking for is for helmets to be made mandatory if people are using e-scooters. Carly very eloquently explained on, I think, the ITV News Granada report that if we all have to get into a car and wear a seatbelt, why does somebody on a motorised vehicle who is in a stood-up position, which is a very vulnerable position to be in, not have to wear a helmet? She also wants there to be a ban on anybody carrying passengers, as we can see the tragic circumstances of what happened to Jacob. And she wants tough penalties for parents who knowingly allow their children to have these vehicles illegally, and for that law to be enforced. The fact that we see all of this on our streets just shows, and I appreciate the police are in a very, very difficult position. I know Carly's worked closely with Greater Manchester Police in terms of doing something for a media awareness campaign. But the sad thing is that the law isn't being enforced. Not long after the accident, saw a young child, must have been about maybe 10 or 11 years old on an e-scooter, right on the accident point where the flowers and the memorial for Jacob were, and he was riding on it. So I said to Carly, I'm going to report this to the police. I went on the police website and I filled in a form to report an incident, and the response I got, very sadly, was, this is a matter for social services, there's nothing that the police can do about it. What I was expecting is for the police to be knocking on the door, because we knew who the child was, we knew who the parent was, knocking on the door and seizing the e-scooter from them and putting it in a scrapyard. The last part of our petition is for there to be a national safety and awareness campaign. We know that the statistics at the moment are not there. We've been in contact with PACT, which is the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety. We've had a look at their research. The figures really only go to, I think, 2023. Just a couple of weeks ago, Carly and I were reading in the news of a man in Nottingham who was riding an e-scooter and suffered a catastrophic head injury and died 48 hours before his wedding. We have a website, we have a social media page. The website's really simple. It's called jacobsjourney.net. Everything about Jacob's story is on there. All the links to the media articles are on there. A link to the petition is on there. And Carly's video is on there as well. Carly, to her credit, is going to be doing a fundraiser, I think on the 18th of August, to raise money for the North West Air Ambulance charity, who saved Jacob's life on the road and gave her those 8 additional precious days when he was in hospital. Had they not been there, he would have died on the road. Jacob's left behind his younger brother, Jaxley, who is 7 years old and is having to process his grief. And if I may close on the very last point and invite you all to think about this, the youngest death on an electric scooter in the UK, the age of that person was 9 years old. How on earth have we allowed this to happen? And this is precisely what Carly is fighting for, to make sure nobody else lives this nightmare that she's currently living through. Would you like to say anything, Carly?
Thank you very much.
We'd just like to say thank you for your time and sharing what's happened to Jacob. On behalf of all our members, I would sincerely like to pass on our condolences to Carly and your family for your loss.